Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Today on the show, we have a new company that we're featuring, and this is their first of a three-part series. So we're featuring Tecweigh, Tecnetics Industries. We've got two guests on. We've got Sheldon Shepherd. He is the Aggregate and International Sales, and Michael Ginther. He is the Service Manager for Tecweigh. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, nice to be here.
So I don't know, have either one of you done a lot of these long form shows before?
No, this will be a first for me. I've done shorter ones in relation to a couple of things, but this will be the first for me.
Michael, have you got a chance to do one of these?
Same here, first for me.
All right. Well, we've got a lot to cover. So I find what ends up happening is after about a couple of minutes, we forget we're recording and we're just trying to get through the information and share it. And that's the idea of the show. So thank you for doing this. Sheldon, let's start with you. Can you give us just an overview of Tecweigh?
Yeah, well, Tecweigh's been around about 50 years. The company's located in St. Paul, Minnesota, but in reality, it's a little bit closer to White Bear Lake, Minnesota, which is a pretty area of Minnesota. Tecweigh makes devices that measures and controls streams of solid materials. We consider our value statement to be providing the best accuracy and dependability in the industry. That's what the most important for us is, accuracy and dependability. We like for customers to have our products and then kind of forget that they have them just because they don't cause any hassle. That's what's most important to us. And build good, reliable, American-made equipment too as well. That's also something else that's very important to us.
What is do you have a bit of the company's stories from where they started and sort of the expansion because it's been quite a bit of growth over the years, if I have my information right?
Yes, you're correct. It got started by a group of investors, of people that had experience in the material handling industry, got together and thought we should start a company. We have some really good ideas. So in servicing the industries of bulk material handling, that's really how it got started, and brought a small group of investors together. They hired the right people, and voila, you had the makings of a nice, growing private company.
And where is the reach now?
Primarily, Tecweigh supports North and South America, and as well as we have an office and manufacturing facility in Australia too as well. We have less of a presence in Europe, but we do have a presence in Asia that is serviced by our Australian facility too as well.
I see. When did the Australia facility come online?
Yeah, the Australian facility's been around about 20 years, and it started as a result of having let's say a channel partner there, and then later on Tecweigh acquired the channel partner, and that became Tecweigh Pty Limited.
Michael, I want to bring you on this. Was it Michael or Mike? What do you prefer?
Michael is only when my mother is yelling at me, so Mike is good.
I saw Michael in the intro, and then I saw Mike later. I thought he probably doesn't want me to call him Michael for a whole episode. So can you walk us through, to sort of spin it around from the customer experience? What are their steps? How are you bringing in what the customer's needs? Just going through that.
Well, generally what happens is we either, they kind of tell us what the site is like. Where do they want the piece of equipment? What do they want the piece of equipment to do? Sales department actually has an application data sheet that they fill out a lot of that stuff, as far as belt length, rate of material, type of material on there, and then we kind of make our recommendations from there.
Let's talk about our Heavy Industry World Tour, brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsmen.com to be part of Crownsmen's Heavy Industry World Tour. Revolutionize your mining operations with MassPro's engineering excellence. Their engineering talent can transform your mining machinery, supercharge your productivity, and improve your equipment optimization. Your success is their mission, and they're prepared to take your mining operations to new heights by maximizing efficiency, safety, and ore extraction like never before. Head to masspro.com.au for further information. Your partner in technical services, AMPS, have been industry leaders in technical services optimization systems and training since 2011. With a team of over 70 resource professionals, AMPS provides world-class support to mining technical services teams globally. AMPS builds the capabilities within teams on site to maximize results and unlock value in mining operations. With significant experience in operational underground and open pit engineering and geology, AMPS is passionate about delivering value to their clients across an array of professional services. If you're looking to improve your mine site's technical services, visit advancedmps.com or email partner@advancedmps.com today.
What is, Mike, staying with you, what are the goals when you're going on to site or you're getting their information? What are sort of the primary things you're focused on?
A big factor is where is the equipment going to be placed? There's some key areas we want to, try to avoid steep inclines, pretty compact curves or tight curves. Is things like that. The other thing is, is this going to be a portable system? Because if it's going to be a portable system, we might want to look into, optimizing wireless technology versus, cabling and things like that. And then ultimately, what kind of accuracy, what kind of material are they looking for? That's the crucial thing, because a lot of times we go on a site or sales, we don't want to design a system for 100 ton per hour rate and then go on site and they want to run 500 tons per hour. Because then we can kind of get outside the range of what the system was built for, and then we run into accuracy issues.
Does that happen? do people, is there some time like that communication on the ground and with engineers and with your firm? How does that all get facilitated to make sure that stuff doesn't, of course, happen?
Well, I mean, obviously it's multiple conversations with the customer. Sales does a really good part with that, and engineering, generally it doesn't happen on an initial installation. Where that can sometimes happen is when a customer repurposes a scale that they already have into a different part of the facility. That's where we more than not run into those issues.
Right. I guess that leads then into once you've gone through the process of even the installation, then what happens after that? The maintenance, the communication after that, checking in, and all those types of things.
Right. So, I mean, we always make ourselves available to all our customers. We have, tech support that they can call. It's during normal business hours, but even after hours, it can get to my phone, and I'll do it. Email. I've even received texts. And we try to, when we're on site and we do a commissioning, we try to involve our customers as much as possible. And hey, these are areas that you're going to have problems with, or this is where maintenance is required. The other thing we also do is we offer service training twice a year. So customers can actually come to our facility and we'll go through the whole entire setup, troubleshooting. We have mock conveyor belts here that they can go through the shimming process. So yeah, we're here. And the other nice thing about it is we always keep the documents of the particular setup to their system on file here. So for some reason something got in there and changed, over the phone, we can get them back up and running.
Hey mining enthusiasts, registration for CIM Connect 2024 Vancouver from May 12th to 15th is now open. Last year, this convention had over 6,800 participants from 60 countries, with 1,796 delegates, 702 booths, and 320 presentations. Secure your spot and register now at convention.cim.org. CIM Connect 2024, where quality and innovation define the experience. Bentech Group is an industry leader when it comes to design, engineering, and manufacturing. Bentech specializes in engineered safety and efficiency equipment such as access platforms, heavy-duty workbenches, work stands and trestles, material and equipment storage, and a range of lifting and handling solutions to maximize safety for your personnel. But that's not their only area of expertise. Bentech also supply high-performance OEM replacement parts for mobile equipment. Bentech's rocks mining parts are built better, eliminating downtime and maximizing efficiency. Visit bentechgroup.com.au today to explore their range.
I want to go through, before we go too much deeper into the interview, I want to sort of go through your products lines. Sometimes companies or I've seen interviews where people, they talk kind of around everything and then the audience ends up, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are you actually providing? Where can people go to check it out? So can you walk us through just a list of some of your primary products, and then we can spend a few minutes talking about them as we go through them.
I'm probably good to do that.
Yeah, please, Sheldon.
Yep. Well, let's talk. We can talk about the products, but I'd like to preface that with talking about the materials, that we're measuring and weighing and controlling the flow of. We have kind of a little slogan that we've made up here. It's called "From Fries to Frac Sand." If you've had a potato product in the United States, it's probably gone across some Tecweigh equipment. Likewise, a lot of aggregate, frac sand, and mining materials could have gone across other types of equipment. So that creates a broad product portfolio. Or even snack foods, for example, the seasoning that's put on the snack foods. How does a company, that's producing some sort of snack food or chip make sure that every single chip has the right amount of seasonings on it? Those are core to what we do. So our product line would consist, of conveyor belt scales as weighing continuous streams of material. Also, weigh belt feeders, which would not only be weighing continuous streams of material, but controlling the flow rate of generally large streams of material. The other area would be with volumetric and gravimetric feeders. Those are screw-type feeders, screw-type flow control devices for metering on, typically dry solid materials. Control gates are another area primarily focused in the aggregate business for controlling the flow in blending fraction, type aggregates. The other area would be in bulk bag unloaders. Now, the whole bulk bag business, is quite a large industry related to materials that come in bulk bags, whether it be filling or discharging those. Tecweigh focuses on building equipment that can meter directly from a bulk bag. So whether it be some chemical process, some water treatment process, or some food process, even with the likes of pizza dough making, for example, on a large scale where they bring in these bulk bags with, the raw materials in, we make equipment that can meter directly from those bulk bags without having to, transfer it to some other part of equipment and meter from there. So, and it's just about making the customer's life easier, as well as making sure the product that they are making meets their specification and makes their customers happy. That's really what it is and what it's all about. And, and bringing people in too, as well, that have the experience and and understand materials. Because just think about your kitchen, even, and all the kind of materials you might have in there, from flour to sugar to salt. Look in your spice cabinet, those kind of materials. Look even in your yard, different types of aggregate materials, sand, gravel. Think about how all of those behave and how all those flow differently. Whenever customers, what Mike was talking about, application data, is collecting the right information on the front end is what's really important. And that's where we really bring value to the customer by bringing knowledge and helping them to understand how they can control the flow rate of material. We also should talk about, Michael, definitely later on in it, about our test lab and the services offered there too as well.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I want to get into actually because I want to get into some specific to mining, the different applications and those. So, but maybe actually let's talk about the test lab now, Mike, if we can, because I want to pivot then into some of the mining. So if we want to highlight it.
Yeah, so we have in this facility we call it a test lab. Um, we use it for a couple of reasons. We use it obviously for training. We also use it to prove out designs or testing before we send a product to a customer. But the primary purpose of that lab is we customers either request from us or we request from them to send us uh, materials. And what the reason is, it comes in, we catalog it, we assign it a test number, and then we get the bulk density. You know how what's the weight of the product per cubic foot, because a lot of that's going to depend on what size equipment we have to put it on. So that's the first thing we do. And then we'll get some specs from either the customer or most likely our sales department, because they're working with the customer, of what are the test parameters. You
Mm.
know, they want to run, X material at 10 pounds a minute, and they want to use this piece of equipment. A, is that possible? B, what kind of accuracy can we get? And we'll run, usually we run 30 test cycles on a particular rate, and when we're done, we create a report not only for the customer to see of how we tested it, what equipment we tested on, but maybe we'll note some, hey, this, when you buy this, if you were to purchase this, we recommend going with a few extra add-ons here or there, or this is some of the challenges that we had in-house and you may see in the field, or we may just flat out say, you know what, this is not a good material to try to use on this particular piece of equipment, because
Mm.
ultimately we don't want to sell a customer a piece of equipment that is not going to work for their application. We're trying to sell them or help them with the existing piece of equipment be successful as possible and maintaining accuracy. And not only that, but make sure that we're not jeopardizing the longevity of the piece of equipment, because some material is much harder to move on equipment, and maybe the motor would be stressed out too much or undersized. So we kind of take all those things into consideration when we test it here.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for covering that. I have a really good example, and it's very specifically related to mining. It's not about bell skills, which we will be talking about some, but this is in relation to a gravimetric or volumetric feeder. And in the gold mining industry, to increase like I believe it's called the extraction rate, or to get more gold out of their process, or get the most gold out of the ore as possible, is feeding of zinc powder. Now, zinc powder is a super heavy material. It weighs about 210 pounds per cubic foot. You take a gallon bucket of this stuff and it is super heavy. Well, we had customers looking to us to be able to meter or provide equipment that can meter zinc powder in very low flow rates accurately into their process. Well, they sent us, samples, a couple of, you know, let's say 4 or 5 gallon buckets full of material, and we were able to develop configurations of the equipment to have the proper motor size, the proper feed tube, the right type of auger, etc. And we were able to quote and provide a configuration that works well with zinc powder, and also provide ourselves knowledge about zinc powder whenever we get those applications in the future. Because if you go into our test lab, we have little containers of material to use as examples, particularly when we're doing training. But the zinc powder one was a perfect example of where a customer sent us some material to test that we weren't familiar with, and we were able to develop a really good, reliable solution.
Do they? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, it reminded me, I had another interesting one to add. It took us about 6 months to come to a good solution was Teflon powder. Uh, we got I mean, everybody has seen Teflon, it's the white tape you put around pipe fittings, but before it goes to that, it's a powder. And basically, if you squeeze it with your hand, it maintains those properties. And the company we were working with wanted to be able to um, dispense it out of our feeder. What we ended up doing is most of our heat feeders are soft-sided feeders. We actually we built a couple versions of this in-house hard-sided feeder, and we ended up having to use air sweeps and vibrators on this thing. Like I said, it took us 6 months, but we did finally get to a point where we could distribute. Basically, what the customer was looking is they wanted to do a 60-pound batch in under 90 seconds. And like I said, it took some time, but we were able to get that. It was a system we had never built before, but again, that's where a test lab comes in. Now we kind of have that in our tool belt, to do stuff like that. So yeah, the test lab can be a big part of the sales process.
And that really you wouldn't be able to do. You just simply you'd have to say no without the test lab, is what I'm taking from that.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Sometimes we have to say no too. We saying it's not possible, or maybe sometimes we think up something else that maybe one of our because there are other types of devices, and we have partners in the industry. Maybe some other technology might be more appropriate. So yeah.
I was wondering, where do things go wrong commonly in these processes? Is it installation? Is it maintenance? Where are the pain points that the clients run into?
Can I talk about that first, Michael?
Absolutely, it's all yours, Sheldon.
Yep. Well, I would, because Michael, he mentioned about sales in the beginning and our role in collecting the information. So where things can go wrong is not getting the right information from the customer on the application data sheet. And usually we're able to look at something and have an understanding if maybe it's not correct or not. But if we don't get the right information in the first go around provided by the customer, or if we're not able to visit the site and to be able to quote the right equipment, that's where things can go wrong too at that point. Or maybe the customer is missing some piece of information, or they take our equipment and install it in the wrong location. And then I'll turn it back over to Michael to, to carry it onward related to, proper installation and maintenance and calibration and those things.
Yeah, I mean, so to just kind of add on that, where on my end, when I see it go wrong, um, is on the initial installation or commissioning. My point is I always make when we talk about these things is, um, ultimately this is a precision piece of equipment, so it takes precision installation that may take a little extra time. And this is something I've already talked about. We really push on our service school, but we have it in our manuals too. Is to make sure we're doing the proper leveling of making sure we're getting a nice level surface to go across. Make sure we got secure mounting. Cabling is a big thing, to make sure we run communication cables, which you generally wouldn't want to run those next to a high voltage situation. That happens once in a while where you got a low voltage cable run next to a cable for a 3-phase motor, and you'll get lots of intermittent problems, things like that. And then further down the road, it's maintenance. And again, it's a precision piece of equipment, so it is not maintenance free. And especially when you're in the aggregate industry, it's outdoors, it's exposed to the elements, and we're dealing with rocks and sand and things that pack up. So it's as simple as maybe using an air hose to blow it out, or just do a visual inspection on that kind of deal. Or just the simple mechanical parts. So you got the cans or the on the idlers, bearings, things like that, wear out. Belt, you get a belt that gets, multiple splices in there. And then ultimately, I like to call them self-inflicted issues, uh, button pushers, where you get maybe you get somebody that's not necessarily experienced starts pushing buttons, and then they can start making changes to settings in there, and then
Does that happen?
absolutely that
But
happens. We have that more. I mean, I would like to say probably low ball in here, but probably 40% of the phone calls are that a setting got changed in
oh,
there.
Somebody's been enhancing the parameters.
Enhancing,
Yeah,
that's a good way to put
yeah,
it.
enhancing the parameters. Oh, or making it read something till they get to see what they're wanting. One of the things in our training session, one of the slides, one of the bullets when we're doing it is saying the scale is correct, measuring production or something like that, or inventory, but it's just not showing the numbers the production people want to see with the customer. That's something you can run into it, at times, or either they're measuring it against something that's less accurate too as well, or measuring it against volumetric or, a stockpile. I have a good example of a dredging operation where they're, doing mining dredging, and I was out looking at this at a at a site where they already had one of our conveyor belt skills installed. And they were going, it seems to be off every month when we do our flyover on, with the drone over this stockpile. It seems to always be about 10% off. And I said, well, let's go out and look at at the conveyor where the scale is. Well, there was water going across the conveyor too, as well, in addition to the aggregate material. And I asked, well, about how much water do you guess you have? He goes, oh, about 10%. I said, how much is your flyover off generally? And he goes, oh, about 10% too as well. So it kind of clicked in him in that the scale will happily measure water along with material. And when it's put into a stockpile, of course, what happens to that water? It all drains off or runs off there. So those are really what a lot of we do, is to try to help our customers understand even just maintenance that they do on the conveyor and its impact on a scale. They go out and retrain the belt, or they replace something, or also something they have to be careful of. And we really try to strongly, drive this home, is be careful of welding around, any type of electrical equipment, because you might damage it unless you know how to properly, protect it from welding around it. So, and that's why we started for some years ago offering service training, as Michael mentioned, and we have that twice a year. Plus, if customer puts together several people, we'll be happy to, put a custom class together for them. And plus, our field service people can also be contracted to do it on site. But for our service training at Tecweigh, we typically don't charge for that. Our belief is the more people we train up on our equipment, particularly end users, it is shown that they have a lot more success, with our equipment by training up their employees on how to use it.
Are companies, I mean, this is a very general question. Of course, there's different types, but are you finding companies are getting better and better at that? Or maybe Tecweigh over years is getting better and better at sort of getting out ahead of these problems? Like I got a bunch of pictures sent to me about some of the things you already mentioned, like poor mounting, the wrong angle. I see one here where there's and I want to bring this one up, that it's like a 90-foot man lift, but there's no catwalk on it. So there's no maintenance happening. Are companies getting better at avoiding that stuff? Because downtime now, I mean, everybody we talk to is talking about downtime, and then safety and efficiency and all that. Have you seen it even in the last? I know people talk about it a lot more. Are you seeing an improvement over the last, let's say, 5, 10 years?
I'd like to comment on that first, and then to turn it, and then I'll hand it over to Michael. Is what I've seen happen is the mining industry, let's say like copper and gold mining, in relation to belt scales. Uh, from the beginning of my career in this industry, which started a little more than 30 years ago, uh, they had pretty good calibration and maintenance programs in place. Generally, if they had some technical question, you needed to make sure you knew what you were doing to help them, because they probably were already generally had good practices going on, and uh, and they knew how to calibrate and maintain equipment. In the aggregate sand and gravel industry was much less that way. But over the past couple of years, it has really grown in the aggregate and sand and gravel industry, because they're using our equipment to provide their KPIs. So it's becoming really important to the, managers and the company performance to be able to, you know, do the proper KPIs and get reliable information. So that's driven down to wondering, are we really using our conveyor belt scales correctly, and any type of other measurement devices we're using? Are we calibrating them? Are we maintaining calibration records? There's definitely a push for doing that, but there's still a long ways to go. This isn't one of those, a belt scale's not one of those, you know, uh, cooker things you used to see on the TV ads where it said set it and forget it. It requires ongoing care and maintenance. They're built really rugged, but it's a measurement device, and whenever you install a belt scale in a conveyor, you turn that whole conveyor basically into a giant instrument. And
Right.
because there's really four components to a belt scale system. You have a weigh bridge, you have which measures the loading, you have a speed sensor which measures the belt speed, you have a processor, or those of us in the belt scale world tend to call them integrators. It's the electronics for it, because it integrates load with speed to give you a tons per hour and totalize that material. But there's a fourth element, which is the conveyor. And that's the part that the dynamic, uncontrolled part that we're trying to make as stable and controlled as possible. I'll turn it over to Michael now to expand on
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so the maintenance, I think the maintenance, just like every other industry right now, with staffing issues, even though customers consider them to be a important part of their system, I think maintenance, in not generalizing everybody, but a majority, I think maintenance only comes into play when all of a sudden the inventories or production is off. And the other part about that is there, if you look at industry turnover, I've
Yeah.
been to a lot of sites where you get one guy that's really familiar with that system, and he's been there 40 years. Well, he's retired, and not a lot of that knowledge got passed along. So you got a new guy there, that's his deal. And, we do our best to help him to train, but, there's been a lot of sites that I go to, and they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily have us to come out there to fix anything. They have us to come out there to check to make sure that they're, do a general inspection or preventative maintenance, but to train their guys, the new generation on site. Hey, this is the maintenance that needs to be done on that. I think that, and I don't think that's just specific to aggregate. I think that's a lot of, especially blue collar right now, is passing that knowledge on the next generation. I think is one of the big challenging parts, especially when it comes to mechanical stuff.
Yeah, and I guess that why it's obviously not the only reason. Is that part of the reason that you are pushing a lot more training, offering that more to clients, just understanding that need that's just there in the industry now?
Yeah, I would think that's a big thing. And I take this from, even going to, as younger kids aren't exposed to the mechanical stuff that they are now. So to train them up there, that's why we offer that, because obviously we want to share that knowledge, and it's in our benefit to make sure our equipment runs the best possible. So if they have a good working knowledge of how to do that, it's just it's gonna pass on for they're gonna have trust in our product, but the other part is the business. It's gonna make their business run better.
Mike, how long have you been in the industry?
So I've been at Tecweigh about 2 years. Previous to this job, worked for a local scale company, did static scales here for 26 years.
Okay.
So that was a lot of, and primarily I did a lot of bulk loadout systems for like railroads, and then a lot of truck scales, generally that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Have you seen now over the years like that? And the Sheldon, I think you said 30 years that you've been in the industry.
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Have you seen a change in demographics? I mean we'll talk about it, but sometimes people put out stats and it's sometimes different than sort of what you sense on the ground, or different from industry to industry, or even company to company. Are you seeing sort of new people coming into the industry, or is it a real struggle to get a 25-year-old to join this sort of mechanical world, especially in heavy industry?
I can comment on that because I've been at least starting out, then I turn it over to Michael to finish up. I know, I'm involved in different industry associations and go to different conferences and meetings, and that is definitely one of the hot topics is getting younger people to move into the, aggregate mining type of industries and heavy industries, and particularly understanding or having the desire to start at the ground level, to kind of make a little bit of a humorous pun in mining, but to start at the ground level and learn about all the equipment and everything, because there's a lot of that can't be taught in schools, even for somebody who's coming out of one of the school of mines. So that is absolutely one of the key points in industry. And then even if we go into the generational trends, the same generational trends we're seeing across the board, the mining industry and aggregate industry is seeing those same effects on people too, in terms of technology and connectivity and everything.
Yeah. From your perspective, Mike, what have you sort of seen? How has it changed or evolved over the years? Like, I feel like 20 years ago, when you'd go on a site, there's a lot of young people getting in to these, these businesses, this industry. And I don't know, but I'm not, I spend a lot of time in the studio now, so I'm actually not on site. So I should be careful with what I say, I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Speaking personally, dealing with, I have a 21-year-old at home. Even new people we have start working here at Tecweigh, and I think the biggest challenge right now is electrically technology. They're fine. It's that mechanical piece is challenging to find. And in the aggregate industry, in our industry, it's probably split 50-50 down the road. I mean, our equipment it's electromechanical.
Well, I was
We have a
going
lot
to
of
say it's kind of both, right?
exactly. You live in two worlds on that, and my biggest, I guess, comparison is I look to, and especially the area of the country that we're in, is farms. You got, you look 30 years ago, even my generation, a lot of kids came off of farms, so they had the mechanical aptitude, maybe not the electrical. And now it's basically that's made a 180.
Right.
It's in schools and high schools, college, they're exposed to technology, and that's usually a pretty quick learning curve. It's the mechanical of looking for leverage points, and just simple, how things are bolted together or welded or structural things like that. That's I think is the challenging part. And then as far as the aggregate, you're like it or not, you're exposed to the elements, and you're out there. Those people are outside a lot, and a lot of those they run, in certain parts of the country, not up here, but they run year round, that can be, you're going to spend some uncomfortable days outside, and that, like it or not, that can sometimes be a turnoff for people.
Yeah, it is. And I wonder then, going, circling back to the training and maintenance, really it puts a lot of pressure on suppliers then to be so thorough, so that essentially these companies are operating, because a lot of the times they are operating lean. They're trying to bring new people in, but it's not easy to do. It puts more pressure on companies like Tecweigh, right?
Definitely, we're getting more and more, and Sheldon could probably answer this more, me too, but then after I answer here, a lot of we're asked to have a lot of more our controllers connected to automation systems. It used to be you'd go to an aggregate quarry, there'd be 20 people there. Now you might find 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, and more is being demanded of a fewer amount of people too, as well. And like Michael was saying, the mechanical side of it, a lot of our equipment's relatively easy to diagnose if there are any questions or issues electrically. Sometimes it's the mechanical part, or maybe nothing even related to our equipment. It's something in the whole process that's affecting it, and being able to look at that and identify it is that's why we also are really big on recommending training for our equipment.
Yeah, it's also, I think it is helpful. I mean, I'm pumping our own tires here, but I think it is good to get on these types of shows, these, YouTube, and because people come across them and they start getting educated, they start being aware. The one thing that I found, but my wife actually worked in immigration, and then and so I kind of got firsthand sort of and a visual of it. And what you see is a lot of people coming into the US or Canada. This is a little bit of a theory of mine. I don't have this like backed up with data, but in some countries, and I've been to some of those countries where those like trades in that are not, like, let's say someone building a road in a rural area, they're not getting paid. They don't come here thinking, oh, this is a really good job. So they end up going into, you know, the all the other technologies other than these trades and some of these tougher ones. I feel like sometimes they just don't realize there's a huge job. There's a job you're going to make twice as much money, and they'll be living in a city making half the money or even less, just not realizing there's this huge opportunity. And I feel like the industrial sector is sort of missing out on that opportunity, because this is actually firsthand. I've talked to people. I mean, like I used to do gutter cleaning in that. It was great money. Like, you're making way better money doing that than you're doing being a server, or washing dishes in the back or whatever. But people, I don't think they realize some of these tougher jobs, how well they actually pay. Again, that's my opinion. I don't know if you'd have the same sort of thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think especially just from I have friends that have worked at that I've known that worked at local quarries in here, and it's a good job. It's hard work, but it's and definitely most of those companies have been around for a long time. So yeah, I think I think they don't do enough to pump themselves up.
Yeah.
Even speaking to Tecweigh, recently we went to a local a technical college to let people know about careers for us internally, that, hey, don't forget about us. We, even though and we work on scales are not glitzy and glamorous, like a Google or Amazon or somebody like that. It's like we get into some pretty cool areas of technology, that are developed, and we try to develop our stuff right along with it.
Yeah, I was actually just saying this on a show the other day. I think heavy industry needs to make a bit of a pivot away from a lot of the pitch has been, look at everything that's in your phone. That all comes from mining, that type of messaging. And it's no, look at how it's actually made. Because I've already got the phone. Why do I care what's in it? I've already got it. It doesn't mean anything to people. But I do think that concept of look at what this actually is. That is fascinating. I mean, I know because I see how long people watch these episodes for. People are into it. They do want to engage. And we have like YouTube shows us age demographics. There's plenty of young people watching the show and trying to learn and watching for a long time. So I don't want to get too, I've kind of took you off on that rabbit trail. I want to bring it back to another question, is integrating into large systems. We kind of did piecemeal conversations the whole time. What about these large systems that you're coming into? And I've got a couple questions. What stage is Tecweigh getting involved? Is it the original design on like a large scale system, or are you coming in after have engineers already put everything together? Where do you start getting involved?
I could comment on that part. Is that I work with a lot of different engineering firms. Usually, it would, if in speaking to the aggregate mining industry, that would primarily be around conveyors. The could be the engineering firm that is providing the conveying systems or the conveyor manufacturers. Usually we are, provided that data on the conveyor, and then we, look at what's required for that application and quote the correct equipment. So, and then the other part to that would be to make sure that that gets installed correctly by whatever kind of engineering firm or contractor that is. And then the other side that again, I just mentioned what I was just talked about was the mechanical side. The other part would be the electrical side, which is to make certain it can communicate with their control system too as well. And there's different, sometimes one customer will be using one type of PLC, like an Allen Bradley, and another one a Siemens, and another one something else. So each of those have specific requirements to be able to communicate with the plant's control system. And as a supplier of equipment, we have to meet those communication capabilities too as well. So that's a challenge on maintaining, your products to the current level of connectivity.
And then Mike, if you could just give us a quick snapshot of, well, it doesn't have to be quick, actually, we have time, but could you give us some insight into specifically the maintenance of these large scale operations, the servicing of them?
I mean, to be 100% honest, the maintenance from a large scale versus a smaller scale doesn't really change.
Doesn't change.
It doesn't. It's mechanically and electrically, they're working the same way as the smaller ones. It just might be a bigger capacity load cell or a wider scale. So obviously with the the bigger equipment, obviously you have a larger area of problems that can occur, but it's the same types of things that occur.
Right.
So really, as far as the size, the maintenance aspect, I don't think really changes on that. Now if you say bigger in the size of scope of equipment that is involved,
Yeah.
then yeah, then you can get to peripherals that maybe you got to look into. But the nice thing about most peripherals is they're either when you're talking PLCs, especially for using like a field bus. So like Sheldon was talking about an Allen Bradley or a Siemens, if they're using an Ethernet connection, there's not a lot of maintenance that needs to be done with that.
Right.
Analog, if we're using an analog, so using an analog signal, the only maintenance that would be done to that is from time to time is you're going to want to check the scale on that. And what I mean by that is, on our analog signals, say you're doing a controller that has 0 to 100 tons per hour. So if we were using a 4 to 20 milliamp output, at 20 milliamps, you'd be showing 100 tons. Well, from time to time, you will probably want to make sure that that's still accurate. So you are seeing that 20 milliamps at 100 tons, whether the end user say they had a card that went bad and now the resistance has shifted just a little bit. That would be maybe a maintenance thing electrically to do. But as far as load cells, idlers, things like that, speed sensors, the size, the small ones, it's the same maintenance procedures as the big ones.
I would just clarify when on like a large, let's say a large mining operation, their maintenance I mean, well, now with like labor shortages, that might not be as they would have pretty robust maintenance programs. Where do you see though issues like just like the belt going off a little bit, so then you get wear and things like that? Would you see it? Would that be the same as from a like a 6-person aggregate operation versus a 500? Or it's pretty across the board. This similar.
Yeah, yeah. It's, I mean, the maintenance itself is the same. It's what I encourage with most of these places. They have a PM or preventative maintenance list. And if I go to a site and I see something like this, I will, if I can, grab the superintendent or the manager or the lead maintenance guy and said, basically say, hey, if you want to, if your object is to keep the scale, in this accuracy range, let's put this on a PM. So, hey, once a week, you're going to have a guy walk over here, just take a quick look to make sure that there's no debris in the scale, as the belt running, basically something that they have it in a list or Excel spreadsheet or something somewhere that reminds somebody to
Yeah.
take a look. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Sheldon, I just want to ask you before we wrap up, you were saying off air, you're actually headed to Australia pretty soon. And you touched on it at the beginning, but can you maybe just expand? We've got a lot of audience in Australia. So
Uh-huh.
we're
Yeah,
actually doing a tour as we speak. We're doing a tour. So of the mining sector in Australia, I think 20 episodes there. Can you just expand a little bit about what the setup is, the operation, before we wrap up?
yeah, Tecweigh employs about 15 people, and we have a small manufacturing facility in Melbourne, Australia. And in Australia, we have a very large install base of belt skills. Primarily, most of them are in the aggregate, sand and gravel type of industries, and then we also share technology between our operation in the USA and Australia too as well. And I'll be going there. I work with the office there in maintaining, their strategic plan and future business and all that sort of thing.
And then you said they service a bit of the Asian market as well.
Yes, yeah, we serve that. Australia's geographically better suited to service the Asian market.
Yeah, I love doing the episodes from there. There's lots of characters, similar. And as soon as you get into the mining world, there's always lots of characters, and it's no exception in Australia. So it's just a ton of fun doing the episodes.
And the same things that we experience in this side of the world are going on there. It's the same, like Michael was talking about, preventative maintenance, housekeeping. Go out and look at a conveyor. Customer says, well, because I'm going out on the sales side, go and visit a customer, and they say, one of my belt skills is it doesn't seem to be reading right. And you go out there and look at it, and one of the rollers isn't even moving, or if they took and put a training idler right next to the scale, or the belt's tracking way off, or I look at the calibration values in it and I see that they really haven't changed in, they haven't been doing the calibrations like they should. And so I always try to turn that into a training opportunity. Those are really important, and that same thing occurs worldwide.
Yeah, that's a people thing generally.
Yep,
Right?
exactly. So
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for being on the show. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit of a different thing doing these long form as opposed to, I know the industry used to do a lot of like little promo videos and things. But when we started doing this long form stuff, people loved it. They started watching and they still do. And the more we do, the more people watch. So we just keep doing more. So thank you for taking the time and doing this with us. It's been a lot of fun.
sure. Well, the more that we talk about, uh, the things we love talking about, which is getting training, and we talk about maintaining your equipment and providing the most appropriate equipment for the application. Those are all core to, our values in providing the best equipment, the best service possible.
Well, and one of the things with this show, when you just said that, it came to mind, is that it's a bit of a different thing because if you go out on the site and you say, like Mike, you were saying, like add it into your maintenance, um, someone will hear that. If 30,000 people hear this episode, one person hears that and they go, and it reminds them to add it. We don't get to always see the results of what we're sharing, but it's a large audience, and it provides, you're probably saving someone a couple $1 million is what I'm getting at, because it reminds them to do something. So gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show, and taking the time, educating our audience, sharing your knowledge, sharing about Tecweigh. We're going to have lots of links, but I do hope we get to do this again. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Sure. Thank you very much. Sure.
And to the audience, thank you for watching. Please go. We're going to have links not just to Tecweigh, but to some of the products we highlighted in this episode. Go check those out. Follow them on LinkedIn. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please do that. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Mining Now.